Welcome to Know the Love of Christ. All right, welcome to chapter 11. Let's recap chapter 10. We discussed how it was another set of proverbs, and it was about the fool, how to spot a fool, verses 1 through 10, and then the rest of the chapter is how to spot a fool by listening. And then we ended with verse 20, where we talked about cursing the king, don't curse the king, not even in our thoughts or in our private rooms. And then we found the love of Christ, of course. So now this week in chapter 11, Stephanie's going to read this very short chapter.
Yes, the shortest chapter in the book. And I will be reading, as usual, from the English Standard Version, starting in verse 1. Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days. Give a portion to 7, or even to 8, for you know not what disaster may happen on earth. If the clouds are full of rain, they empty themselves on the earth. And if a tree falls to the south or to the north, in the place where the tree falls, there it will lie. He who observes the wind will not sow, and he who regards the clouds will not reap. As you do not know the way the Spirit comes to the bones in the womb of a woman with child, so you do not know the work of God who makes everything. In the morning sow your seed, and at evening withhold not your hand, for you do not know which will prosper, this or that, or whether both alike will be good. Light is sweet, and it is pleasant for the eyes to see the sun. So if a person lives many years, let him rejoice in them all. But let him remember that the days of darkness will be many. All that comes is vanity. Rejoice, O young man, in your youth, and let your heart cheer you in the days of your youth. Walk in the ways of your heart and the sight of your eyes. But know that for all these things God will bring you into judgment. Remove vexation from your heart and put away pain from your body, for youth and the dawn of life are vanity. Very quick.
Yeah, very quick and very proverby.
Very proverby.
At first I was like, I don't get it. I just don't get it.
I really had to use some extra resources on this chapter, for sure.
You went to other books and stuff?
Well, I use the cultural commentary that I talk about, the IVP Bible background commentary. And so I haven't been using it as much this season. It hasn't had a whole lot, but this chapter and the next chapter, it had a little bit on that was helpful to explain some things. So,
I'd be interested in hearing next chapter.
Yeah, next chapters is really good. Yeah.
But for this one, like the first couple of verses, I was like, what?
Yeah. And I do feel like, we talked about in the Proverbs, the first several chapters are all lumped, and then you start getting off into these like one-liners or two-liners. You'll have a few verses that relate, and then it'll be a wholly different subject that just kind of like, it's almost like someone is dying and they want to impart all the little nuggets of wisdom that they have, and so they just put them down, jot them down real quick. Or maybe, it's just as it comes to them, but it's kind of that kind of principle.
I was thinking, cast your bread upon the waters. And I was like, well, maybe it's tying back to verse 19 of 10. A feast is made for laughter. And I was like, no, it's not.
It's not. It's just, it's so, I don't want to say weird, but
it's
weird.
It's very, I don't know. It lost
It's a
me.
whole, like we've been saying, it flows from that chapter to the chapter. There's no flow from 10 to 11. It's just done. You can tell why the people chose this break here because it does not connect. But yeah.
Now 3 and 4, to me, it actually goes with 5 because it's basically saying, okay, these things are facts, but you don't know the origin or the direction because this is something that God would know about, not us.
Yeah. Now, I do have some stuff for 1 and 2, just because we find it confusing. I'm going to assume some of you out there find it a little confusing because it does seem very abrupt. But the cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days. It said that this proverb has been found in the Egyptian source, the instruction of Ankeshonke. I don't know how to pronounce that, but that's kind of how it looks like. Which is to do a good deed and throw it in the river. When it dries up, you shall find it. And in Arabic proverbs as well, And it said, if Ecclesiastes follows the root of that very hard word, it suggests that a spontaneous good deed carries no guarantees of reciprocity, but that what goes around comes around. That principle.
Oh.
So you throw your bread out on the water, it comes to you. So give away your bread, you'll get some back, kind of idea. Which, no idea if that's actually what it is, but that's what they said that this is a similar proverb to that.
I mean, it makes sense, but I was thinking when you mentioned, verse 1 was an Egyptian proverb or an Aramaic.
Yeah, it's found in both Arabic and Egyptian.
Okay. But if you think about it, though, this came first, right?
Yes, it did. But what I'm saying is the other source that they're pulling from says that this is a similar proverb to those proverbs. So
I wonder why bread melts in water. Not melts, but it dissolves a lot quicker. Like, you're not going to find it if the water dries up.
True, which I've been making bread because we've had VBS. And so it's a little stouter stuff than what we have, But even so, it's more the idea, I think. The idea that when you're generous, good things happen to you as well.
It is more blessed to give than to receive.
I guess so. But also the idea that typically when you do well to others, good things happen to you as well. But that is what the cultural context commentary said.
All right. Well, even with that,
which they could be wrong. But
I'm like, what?
Even so, it's just kind of out there, and it doesn't connect. It doesn't connect to two. Just kind of,
right.
All of it connects to the overarching theme of Hevel, that these things are temporary, that, we keep saying Hevel, like it, not in the meaningless way. It can be translated that way, but also Hevel, and this is temporary. It, it's fleeting. It's going to go away. And so that idea of when you have your hands just clenched, you can't receive blessings that way. You have to open your hands to give away, but also to receive blessing. And when you hoard things, that's not going to work out well for you. But
all right, I'll take it. That's fine.
So, but on to, you were on 4 and 5, right? Or 3 through 5?
3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. To me, it made me think of Job 38 through 41, when God finally talks to Job. Look what it's saying here, especially in 5. As you do not know what is the way of the wind, or how the bones grow in the womb of her who is with child, so you do not know the works of God who makes all things. If you haven't read Job 38, chapters 38 through 41, go read it.
Yeah. And it's a wisdom lit passage. It connects very well. So
I also thought of John 3:8, because John 3:8, I don't think it ties exactly the same, but Jesus says, the wind blows where it wishes, and you hear the sound of it, but cannot tell where it comes from and where it goes. So is everyone who is born of the Spirit. That's when he's talking to Nicodemus at night. It just made me think, you just don't know.
We don't.
We think we do, but we don't.
And I think you're right that 5 ties to the 2 in front of it, which mine puts a space in between them. But I do think they connect. Okay, so these are natural occurrences in 3, right? Things that naturally happen. And I thought about that, that if a tree falls in the forest and no one is there to hear it, does it make a sound? That's the way it read to me, but I know that's not what it's saying. But it's saying, these are natural things that happen. And then 4 is humans observing that. But there's a point at which our head is in the clouds. And I think what he's saying there, but if you go at these things too long, if you are spending time on meaningless tasks, like head stuck in the clouds, thinking about, I don't know, almost over philosophizing, it's meaningless. It does you no good. Because I think that's what he's saying at the end of 4. If you're sitting there observing the wind, if you're busy.
Well, no.
That's not.
I didn't take it that way. I took it as, okay, he who observes the wind will not sow, and he who regards the clouds will not reap. Because I garden, okay?
Okay.
So I'm not going to go sow some seeds on a windy day, especially like carrot seeds. They're tiny.
Oh, I see it.
And
I read
they would
it
blow
a
away.
Completely different way.
And so, if I'm going to go harvest, I'm not going to go do it when I see the clouds coming and it's about to storm.
That makes a lot more sense. a lot more sense.
So, like, then, if the clouds are full of rain, they empty themselves on the earth. If the tree falls, it there it shall lie. If you're going to observe the wind, you're not going to. So, it's kind of like use your noggin, use your common sense, which brings us back to 10 in the fool, not being wise. And then he leads right into, you don't know the way of the wind. Yeah, you may observe it. You
Right.
feel it, and you see the things being moved, but we don't see it.
Right.
We observe it as far as the evidence, but we don't actually see the wind. And, we know a baby is growing inside of us, but we don't see the baby. We got ultrasound, but that's not seeing
But
the
even
baby.
so, we don't sit there and watch the bones form,
Right.
and we don't know how they do. We just know that
Right.
they do.
And we get snippets, so we might get an ultrasound at this point and then over here at this point, and we compare the difference, but we don't actually, we don't know how it's growing. We just don't know. And so while we don't know it all, God's wisdom is what we, ask for, but there are just some things we're not going to know, and it's not for us to know yet. And that's why, I thought of Job 38:41 through 41, and all the things that God says. Like I remember the first time reading that, and it said how he stops the waves, the proud waves. And I'm like, well, yeah, they go on the shore, but they don't go any further. And that's just amazing if you think about it.
It is.
It doesn't go any further than what God has said to do. It's like 3, 4, and 5 almost is like, okay, I just told y'all about 10 and spotting a fool and hearing a fool. Yeah, don't be the fool. Even though you want wisdom, you can have wisdom. Solomon had wisdom, but he still didn't know all these things. Yeah, no, maybe so.
No, I think, yes, I take back what I said. I don't think that. I think the way that you read it is correct. So.
And like it continues on in 6, in the morning sow your seed. Well, because it's not so hot. It's the easiest way to do it. In the evening, do not withhold your hand. Don't stop. Keep working, because all the toil under the sun. And then for you do not know which will prosper, either this or that, or whether both will be alike or good. Or both alike will be good. So it's like, I've planted a bunch of carrot seeds and a bunch of tomato seeds, and I think I got, a few out of the bunch I thought I was going to get, So it's like, I just don't know which seed's going to grow.
That is how I read 6. The end of it, basically don't stop and don't, because to me that idea of withholding your hand is you have more seed, you have more work you could do, and you're like, I don't know if it's worth it. It's the end of the day. Let's just pack it in. And so he's saying, no, go ahead and sow that seed, because you don't know which ones are going to sprout and which ones are going to take root and which ones will fully develop. Because even then, which of course took me to the parable of the sower in my mind with this. And so I was thinking of Matthew 13 as sowers of the seed, which wasn't the context there, but we are told to go out and sow the seed. And so as sowers of the seed, we're not supposed to say we don't get to say, we're just not supposed to. We don't get to say which seeds take root and which we don't know people's soil like Jesus does. And we're not supposed to judge ahead of time and treat people as potential converts and, you have less potential, so I'm not going to sow this seed with you. My time is wasted here. Time spent sowing the seed is never time wasted, because even if it doesn't work out with you, who knows if 20 years down the road that seed takes root. They remember the conversation they had with you or what you said, and it affects them in certain ways that lead to other things down the road.
And then he comes down.
Of course, as always.
Like it continues in 7, like truly the light is sweet and is pleasant for the eyes to behold the sun. Yes, especially like, if the clouds are full of rain, like he says in verse 3. But if a man lives many years and rejoices in them all, yet let him remember all the days of darkness. For they will be many. All that is coming is vanity. Like, oh, your life is so good right now, but be ready because it's not going to always be good because we're still under the sun.
Yeah.
Even though the light is sweet and it's pleasant to behold the sun, but we're still under the sun. We're not in heaven yet.
Boiled it down to like one statement for that section, and just choose your enjoyment wisely. And enjoy the things that are there to be enjoyed, and turn away from the things that you shouldn't enjoy, because life is short.
Mm-hmm. I have all that is coming is vanity underlined. Like, that's old years and death. All it's coming and it's vanity.
Yeah. Now in verse 10, it says, "Put away pain from your body." Does yours say evil?
Yeah.
Okay.
From your flesh. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it goes on and says, "For childhood and youth are vanity." And if we recall, vanity, hevel, it's just a wisp. We are, generally speaking, we are longer than we are as kids. We are adults and of the age of accountability longer than we are children. So like the childhood and youth is just a wisp. And I think that's why Jesus says you have to be a child in order to be in the kingdom. Not because it's quick, but because think of how your childhood is. Or no, think of how your child life, does that make sense? Your childhood, not as far as your upbringing or your circumstances, but how a child is. They're quick to forgive.
They're unbothered.
Yeah. I mean,
if
life
things are
is
not
just
heavy, there's no gravity to them.
Right.
They are unburdened, I would say.
I see,
Innocent,
Rissa and Clark come
naive,
bebopping through here, and like life is good for them.
Yeah.
As a child.
And even children that don't have good childhoods do not have the weight of adulthood on them.
Right.
And that is on us to make sure that they do not, that we don't force them to grow up before their time. And I would say that even with spiritual things. Like when we have issues in the church, I don't need to put that on my kids. They don't need to know that right now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when they're older and they can understand things, I do want them to understand realities. But I need to feed them realities at the appropriate time in the appropriate amounts and the proper dosages so as not to discourage them. And it's not me hiding things from them. It's me assessing their maturity and realizing that. And I mean, I say that as a person that had a very hard childhood. The innocence of this. Well, it's funny because I looked up that word right before you started that. And that word for, is it youth in the beginning? Yeah. Because in the ESV it says, "Put away pain from your body, for youth and the dawn of life are vanity." And so that word for youth right there is dark hair.
Oh.
Or hair indicating youth.
Huh.
And then dawn of life is youth. Which I thought was weird. Like,
well, yeah, because
it's a principle. Yeah.
Because we say they're in the sunset years.
Yeah. And that, I just found that interesting. That
older
little tidbit about which is completely off topic,
random.
But on topic. Yeah, random. I found it interesting. I thought people would as well.
We did skip verse 9. Sort of. I mean, it just basically.
Oh, we did. We did
yeah.
kind of skirt over it, which I lumped it in with 8. Choose your enjoyment wisely. But he's also going to hit on this in the next chapter. Yeah,
so that's why I don't want to get too much into it, because I might have a very unusual view on this, and I'll be interested to talk to you about it. So
yeah, there are principles in our youth and things we should learn. We should enjoy our youth while we don't have those burdens.
But we don't know to enjoy it.
Exactly. Youth is wasted on the young, right? I think I've heard that a lot.
Yep. I've said it a lot.
Yeah. But I love that warning at the end of 9. It tells them, rejoice, let your heart cheer you, walk in the ways of your heart and the sight of your eyes. But know that for all these things, God will bring you into judgment. And he touches on that again next chapter. So with that, we will wrap it up with our important, but it is normal. Important question. Where do we see the love of Christ?
7. It says, truly the light is sweet, and it is pleasant for the eyes to behold the sun. Because Jesus says he's the light of life. And he was pleasant to behold. I mean, because we have all the gospel accounts of it. So, I know that seems so weak, but...
No, it's not weak. All right, and I see it, I think, in verse 5, where it says, you don't know the way the Spirit comes to the bones in the womb of a woman with child, so you do not know the work of God who makes everything. I love that God, like we talked about with children, I love that God doesn't burden us with those details, and that there are some things we don't know. And we are given the fact that we shouldn't know them, that it doesn't matter, that's... I was thinking when we were going through this little snippet on 5 about Hevel and how, and we'll touch on this next chapter, so I don't really want to hit it right now so heavily, but all the wisdom under the sun, and we've talked about this before, is Hevel. Like earthly wisdom, it's Hevel. It's not a waste of time. There are certain things we should pursue and know. We talked about common sense, and there are certain things we have to know. But even so, without God knowing all the loftier knowledge, none of it matters. And a lot of it doesn't matter in eternity. And it's a good distraction device from Satan. But I love that God keeps us from all that. He gives us the opportunity to be unburdened in that sense. All right. Well, that does it for this week. Thank you again for joining us. We're always grateful to you who listen in. If you want to, please reach out to us. We would love to study with you. Or if you are not near us, we can find someone local to you to study with you. If you have any questions or comments, we'd love to hear those as well. As always, we hope that you will seek to know the love of Christ in your own life. Until next time, bye.
If you like this episode, be sure and share it with someone. In doing so, you're sharing the love of Christ.